Well, welcome everybody. We're just starting this live, and I'm just checking to make sure that we are streaming. I've been having major problems with that today. And yes, we're finally on Facebook and YouTube. All right. And now we've got two more spots on Facebook, but I don't know if they'll connect. And we are on X. Oh, yeah, we are on X. So Facebook, not wanting to go ahead here. And so we're going to turn those down so that they don't cause me to. Okay. Just want to make sure that I've shut down the right ones. Okay. Shift Canada. Okay, these are good. All right. So we're all set. My nose is a little itchy. So, anyways, hello, Janine, Kelly, Gilbert, Dawn. So, anyways, I had a hell of a day trying to connect to Facebook. And every time I tried to stream, it wouldn't let me. So, I was being seen on YouTube and X, but not on Facebook. So, it took me all afternoon to try and figure it out. But it was something that had to do with a Facebook glitch. So, anyways, Facebook is still not allowing me to live stream in our groups, which I used to be able to before. So I still have to kind of figure it out. But as long as we're on the main page, this is our old page, the Powershift, and that page has been shadow banned big time by Facebook. So I just said, okay, well, let's try to minimize that one and rebuild a new one. So I did a new one with Powershift referendum. Okay, so that one we need to be able to have a lot of followers on before it gets anywhere. But what we're seeing is that when I'm posting on that one and from that one and then resharing, the people are able to see the post a little bit more. So Kelly's saying you all had Facebook and Messenger issues today. Well, I'm not the only one, but I thought I was. And, it allowed me to kind of refresh everything anyways. Oui, Jacinthe, ben là, vous l'aurez pas en français ce soir. Parce que ce soir, là, j'ai un meeting avec nos membres en français. Mais il va y avoir des sous-titres avec les vidéos que je vais montrer, là, OK? Fait que c'est pas perdu, OK? So anyways, sorry about that, people, but we're going to have subtitles for the French people to follow a video that I wanted to show you because it's important that people realize that we are absolutely not like the other groups that you are part of across Canada. We are about solutions. We're not a news group, okay? And most of the others, who are streaming live and doing all these things, all they're doing is regurgitating the news that's been being filtered throughout, okay? We are solutions based. We are the only legal solution, okay, that can get this done without the government trying to say that we're trying to overthrow the government. All we're doing is we're taking our rights that the government has lied to us about and bringing them forward because in 1982, we should have been, they should have removed the crown and placed the people as collective head of state. Okay. But they didn't want to do that. They wanted to make sure that they could rule over the government, over the people, so that they could still control all of our natural resources. Because in a decolonization, okay, and they called it patriation, but really it's a decolonization. And I have the proof for that. I have all the proof that we need. I have every argument possible. So I'd like to be able to challenge the lawyers, okay, to discuss with me on this. And if they have any balls. Okay, because so far Canadian lawyers have not had the education required to know this stuff. Why? Because in the 1940s, they started using teachers that were going against the grain, against the rule of law. And those are the ones they place in the education systems across Canada to teach law school. Okay. So anyways, it's a long story, but we are about the truth and we are about making this happen for Canadian citizens because eventually, if we're smart enough, and I think Canadians are smart enough, if they can stop believing everything they hear and start reading and taking in information and keeping an open mind, because you've been lied about everything forever, and you need to get out of that trap that they have set for you and everybody else. So, I'm lucky that I've had 17 years of research. And, a lot of people in Canada, even the other groups, don't even understand what we do. So they trash us and they think we're all about money. Well, I'll guarantee you, we're the only group, okay, with a legal solution that's already invested $500,000. We took a loan for the last 3 years, and that's what we went through to try to get lawyers here and internationally, and get information and do some advertising. And we spent that money to try and bring you the information, but only to be backstabbed by groups claiming they wanted unity, but they don't want unity. And we're proof of that, because I can prove to you that we were even shadow banned by the groups. Why? Because of jealousy and pettiness. We're not a news station. I mean, we're not even in competition with any of them. And, they fail to realize that. But they see us as competing for memberships. Well, if we don't have members, we can't survive, and we can't bring this through. And if we don't have the people across Canada supporting this, it will never happen. Because in order, and I've always said this since 2017, in order for this to work, we need all Canadians, at least the majority, to sign their Citizens Convention of Consent, which is what we drafted. But now what I did is I went further because of what's happening in government. The Governor General should have locked up Trudeau and all of his accomplices, including Jagmeet Singh, okay, and placed them behind bars because they are allowing corruption. But she's not going to do that, because she is also, one of those woke minds. And, she doesn't know any better. So she doesn't even know her real rights as the acting head of state. Okay. So what we've done is I've created a referendum, because by rights, we are allowed to do this referendum, and the government is not allowed to interfere. The only thing the government can do is to assist us, is to help us in order to get this out. Okay, so I figured, well, why did I take a chance in borrowing that money? Because I thought Canadian citizens deserve this. And then I thought, well, to hell with them. They don't even deserve this country, when I saw what I was seeing and what we've been going through the last 3 years. Okay. And then with Trump making his assumptions, before I call myself an American citizen and that I agree to become one of the 51st state of the United States, I would rather die. And I'm willing to die for this country and for the children that do not deserve this. And, their parents and everybody else is not acting the way they should. They're not using critical thinking. Everybody's too busy being on TikTok and everything else and just going through all of these videos, one after the other. And nobody can even read anymore. So it's very frustrating. I couldn't even come live all week because I was so angry. And then Dennis says to me, he says, Nicole, just because Trump said that, leave that alone. And don't let it get to you. Well, don't let it get to me. I've been at this for 17 years, only to find out that Canadians would be okay with this because they don't even know the reality of what they own. It just pisses me right off. We are all each a shareholder, co-owner of this country. And that was made legal in 1982 with a partial patriation. The only thing that was brought to Canada was a Charter of Rights and Freedom. That's not a constitution, people. The UK told the Canadian government, until the people we've heard from the people, you can't do it. The people needed a referendum. Then the UK wondered, why did Canada not have a referendum of the people across Canada, then won by the Indigenous nations? Because guess what? You have two peoples in Canada, Canadian citizens, and then the Indigenous nations. Okay. And if Canadians don't deserve this country because they're too ignorant and too stupid to stand up for it, or are just a bunch of cowards thinking somebody's going to come and save you, and you're too cowardly to save your children because, oh, I'm going to be I want to be part of the 51st state. Do you know that the WEF, the only place that the WEF doesn't pay taxes is in the United States and Switzerland? Think about that for a while. Where's it all coming from? Follow the money, people. Follow the actions, not words. And if you want to know why Jagmeet Singh can't stand up against Trudeau, it's not because he's flip-flopping back and forth and Trudeau's making promises to him. It's because he is part of the WEF. He cannot go against Freeland, and especially Freeland sits on the board of, yes, the one world government. Singh will never, never not side with Trudeau. Okay? Because why? Because the WEF places Trudeau and Freeland on pedestals worldwide at parties you don't even know about. They bring them to universities to piddle them, just like, idols to young minds, and to get them to sign up to being not just young global leaders, but global shapers, global shapers. So we need to stop this insanity. And only you can do that. So now I'm going to, before I go on to the video that I need to show you, and if the RCMP doesn't do something about this, and we need everybody to stand with us that wants true change, because following the others, all you're getting is the news, okay? Realize this. And then realize why we didn't stand behind a notice of liability. Illegal. Somebody can't give their grocers, they can't go shopping for their groceries and give a notice of liability to the manager. It might scare them for a while, but the minute the boss gives that to the lawyers are rolling on the floor laughing. The only time a notice of liability is feasible and legal is in a contract, okay, between you and the others. Let's say the grocery store, unless the grocery store signs that yes, they will accept your notice of liability, you've got nothing to stand on. It's a waste of time. The memorandum of understanding that everybody signed at the convoy, the reason why the government went after them so bad is because they said, oh, they are a terrorist organization, because now they're trying to overthrow the government. It's no different. I mean, the document was great. The notice of liability was a good idea because it did scare some people. So some good work was done out of all that, okay? It did scare. And some people were able to get some benefits from that back, or, whatever it caused, but it wouldn't have stood up in court. But the memorandum of understanding was not protected by law, because the people none of us have any rights to give this to the government. Now, everything that I've ever sent to the senators in the last 7 years, and to the justices, including the Supreme Court of Canada, where the justices across Canada, one sent me back an F you and F off. Okay, so I got 2 back. And from justices, because I asked them if they were participating in a, how do you call that? Unintentional manslaughter. Unintentional manslaughter. Okay. And then I gave them all of the legal rights that Canadians have, and the facts about the isolation. The isolation couldn't penetrate healthy cells. That would have been a game over. But then others were going around saying, oh, it's not even a real one, so don't even pay attention to that. But that's the isolation that the CDC used and around the world. And all anybody had to do, all of these hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of doctors had to read the bottom line, the conclusion on the CDC. It would have been game over. But no, everybody jumped into the drama, created the trauma, followed everything, didn't use critical thinking. Doctors are just so used to just reading what they're being told to do. No brains in their heads, because that's all gone because, oh, life is too fast. I don't care if I'm insulting anybody right now, but we're in a position where our country is being threatened in every which way possible. And they're coming at us with this one world government like there's no tomorrow. Why? Because there's other things involved that you don't even know about, that you don't even realize, that you need to know. But we can't get to you because you're being told to ignore us. So our main purpose is to make sure that the future of our children is protected. We will, if I had to go and borrow another $500,000 today to keep this going, I wouldn't, because the first one was useless. Over, hundreds of thousands of dollars for advertising that didn't go nowhere. Door hangers that were passed around everywhere that as much as we could. Ignored, thrown in the garbage. So nobody's interested. Somebody's going to come and save them because everybody's a freaking coward or too lazy to understand what's going on. Nobody's asking questions. And then the ones who know that they did wrong, oh, well, they don't want to say anything because they're going to get charged with murder maybe, huh? So this is what we're facing. So I'm going to go to this video. And this is our little intro that I want to show you. Instead of doing lives, I did videos, and hopefully this time around people will get it. And everybody's going to go to the CanadianReferendum.ca, CanadianReferendum.ca, sign that referendum and read it, and you'll see how we fix this. If they would have done that for the MOU, okay, that would have been a really good document, but it needed to be protected with the real laws that the government is terrified of. Because Canada is bound by international human rights law. There are 3 laws that protect us, 3 laws that allow us to take back this country. It is ours, the people together as the collective, and we can take back all of our natural resources and then renegotiate with all of those corporations working there or taking our future out of our hands because they are taking our money. And then we have people on the street. Aren't you tired? Well, please listen to this.
Attention, Canadians. Do you feel disconnected from our current political system? This could be our last chance to take a real legal stand for our rights. It's time to shift the political power to its rightful owners, the Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples of Canada. Dive into our history. Understand the need for change and embark on the quest for true democracy. Are you concerned about our nation's commitment to human rights and self-governance? The Powershift to freedom aligns with vital treaties and international laws enabling us to claim our rightful place as collective head of state. We advocate legally replacing the Crown, King Charles III, and our partocracy system with a true democracy, the peoples as the true collective head of state with veto power over our governance, to ensure your voice counts more than party interests. When our national collective civil and political rights are respected, your influence on policies will be direct and impactful. Join us on this noble struggle to make every Canadian and Indigenous peoples a meaningful participant in our future as collective head of state, which was legally owed and kept from us since the patriation of our Constitution, an official decolonization from the United Kingdom of 1982. It's time to correct the past of our government's lies and omissions to the people of our great country before it is too late. People 15 years old and over can sign our Canadian People's Referendum at CanadianReferendum.ca and unite for our rights as the collective head of state in our Constitution. Together, we can be the example in reshaping Canada's future, not just for us, but for all peoples worldwide, once and for all. Are you ready to be part of this transformative movement? Join the Powershift to Freedom movement by the Canadian People's Union and be part of a bold vision for Canada's future. Visit thecpu.ca for more details. Embrace and face the change required on your part to shape our future.
Okay, so that was it. And we have it in French before the people ask me in French if it's in French. Yes, it's already posted. But anyways, there's a question here. Okay, when will Nuremberg 2.0 start? Nuremberg 2.0 will never happen, and I'll tell you why. Because it is the Commonwealth countries with the United States that is doing all of this. Okay? So there won't be no Nuremberg 2.0 until we, the people, become in charge of our governments. And the only way to do it is the CPU way, legally. Okay? And Canadians can't take up arms against our governments because guess what? All of the other countries are going to get involved. So we have to be careful with what we do in Canada. You know, some people are shooting their mouths off without even knowing what's entailed and what it takes for a country like Canada to survive in this world and all of the deals that are being made and the trades and everything else. And, you know, all of the nitty gritty. And, but, oh, yeah, we're going to take back our country. Well, you better make sure you do it the right way because in the international, they're going to stop you. So what benefit did I have was to learning the ins and outs, was to find out at the international level what happened to other countries, what were the debates about, what were the Hansards in regards to, you know, their governments and everything that was being argued and what happened into the court cases, what were the precedents. Okay. Right now in Canada, if we use the African precedent, none of the contracts that the Canadian government undertakes are allowed to be voided out. They have to be shown to the people because any contracts they do in regards to Canada has and that nothing with national security, and none of those contracts were in regards to national security. So they should have been voided and given to the people. But our country isn't doing that because they're lying. And they've got an agenda. So that's a precedent that needs to happen. But in order to be able to go to court now, the court wants to make sure that we have enough money to be able to pay up if we lose. So we need millions of dollars, people, before we can take anything to court. But this here, if the people stand with us and we can show the political party, Poilievre is not going to save us. First of all, he tells Israel, you're going to win. At the same dinner Trudeau was at. You got to find out who Stephen Harper's best buddy Kissinger was. You got to find out that Kissinger is Klaus Schwab's mentor. Okay? So all of these things you need to know. What was open government all about? Everybody in the world had to report to the United States. Is the United States going to come and help you? You think Trump is going to be able to do something? Yesterday, the senators said no to Robert Kennedy Jr. Okay, no way, Jose. So if Trump could flap off his lips all he wants right now, but he can't do everything that he wants to do. Okay, mark my words. And, you know, unless you know the history and everything else, you could be hopeful somebody's going to come and save you, but all they'd want this country for is the natural resources and to hell with the people. Okay. So right now I'm going to go and do a screen share to show you the video, and you need to listen properly. You know, if you guys don't believe me, the CSIS and the RCMP need to listen to this completely, and they need to arrest everybody from the WEF who is interfering in our policies, which is what Jagmeet Singh and everybody else is doing. So they'll never be able to remove Trudeau until next year or whenever he's ready, because the international, the WEF puts him up on a pedestal like an idol, as though he's an idol. And that's why he's so cocky, thinks nobody can touch him and doesn't care. We're just the peasants. Well, let's show them how much we care. But the Canadian citizens, by over 51% of Canadians, need to support us. Okay? And it has to come from you, because I'm not going to go and borrow some more money to only owe and then being ignored again. So now we've done more and beyond what any of these groups have ever done in Canada. NCI comes close, and I raise my hats off to them. Even Jane Sharf has done, some of the good things. But these people are not giving us the time of day either. The lawyers are telling everybody, oh, no, Nicole's wrong. Why? Because they're too lazy to go and read. Okay? And so is one I'd like to speak to and have a debate about. Is one of them that's a lawyer that wrote me back, a teacher, Bruce Pardy, wrote me back and said, oh, you've done some amazing work, but in Canada, we don't recognize international law. Well, I'm sorry. It's under Section 52 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And the UK said it to Canada in 1982. If Canada wants to go against international law, the UK was not ready to do it. Okay? So there's some really interesting reading when you go to the referendum, CanadianReferendum.ca. Go and read the documents on the About page, download them all, and have yourselves a good read and a great education, because you're going to need it. Okay? So here we're going to just do a share screen here. Okay? This is the guy that went to the World Economic Forum. I shared this last year, but we're going to do it again. Okay? Now we're going to do this and start this off.
And I came to realize that the Germans had even hidden from themselves the evil that they were doing by altering language. They didn't use words like genocide. They didn't speak in terms of mass killing. Instead, they cloaked it with phrases like, the Jewish question and the final solution. And I've discovered that this is the case with the World Economic Forum, with terms like for the greater good, sustainability, and for the good of the planet, this kind of thing. And when you begin to engage them in conversation, this is the kind of language they begin to use. And if you're not sort of acclimated to it, it might escape you what it is that they're actually talking about. And then when you realize that they say something like population sustainability, what they're actually talking about is, as you well know, they're talking about depopulation.
I've spent my career taking on some of the cultural baddies, some of the most prominent intellectuals in the world, some of them in public debate, some of them behind the scenes. And I've come to realize that ideas define everything that we do. With an academic degree, you're trained to be a researcher and writer to the point that it's annoying. But I'm grateful for it. I'm not talking about books I've not read. I'm not talking about papers I've not read. Whether I agree with them or not actually isn't the point. There are quite a few books that I would read that I would say are actually evil books. Donald Trump, when he was in a divorce with his first wife, she said he has a copy of Mein Kampf next to his bed. I wish more people did. If the German people had bothered to read that book rather than just have it on their shelf, we might have avoided the Holocaust. If more people read the Quran, they'd be wiser to what Islam actually is, what they actually believe. If people bothered to read, as I have, the writings of Klaus Schwab and the various contributors to the World Economic Forum and the ideas that are driving the globalists, I read them because I want to understand their mentality. I cut out the middleman. I go straight to the ideology. Everything in your life is being defined by either your ideas or the ideas of the people around you. And each episode, we're going to be digging into a different idea that appears in the culture. This is Ideas Have Consequences with me, Larry Alex Taunton.
Jim, we both share the very thing that brought us together is the fact that we both share a deep concern, indeed an alarm for the World Economic Forum, who they are and what they're doing. And just by way of introduction to those who maybe aren't familiar with your work or even particularly familiar with my own, let me just offer just a very brief introduction to our viewers before I get into the weeds of that with you. The World Economic Forum was founded by Klaus Schwab, a German engineer, in 1971. He is the founder and sole chairman of the World Economic Forum. And as I like to say, he looks like, Ernst Stavro Blofeld. He's, a bald-headed a German who looks like a Bond villain. You can almost picture him, petting a cat as he says, "You will have nothing and you will be happy." I mean, this is Klaus Schwab. I do think that people overestimate Klaus Schwab's particular, power. I mean, the World Economic Forum isn't a legislative body. They don't have the ability to impose legislation. They don't have an army. That said, they are a gathering place for world leaders, and they're brokers of power, and they encourage policy, and they've been very effective at encouraging it. And so this last year at the World Economic Forum gathering in Davos, Switzerland, the one where I mentioned when I was there were, over, 600 CEOs from various major corporations. There were 115 billionaires, and there were more than 50 heads of state, and then there were 2,700 other people, like me, who were there in attendance. And these are people who are pushing, as I say, godless, anti-human philosophy, anti-human policies. Some of the farming policies that we're seeing, depopulation policies that we're seeing, and they're the kinds of things that, only a short time ago, people would say, this is just conspiracy theory. This is all nonsense. No, nobody really believes that. Well, as I've demonstrated, on my own podcast, I can show, these are the things that they're saying publicly. They're quite open about this. And as you're demonstrating, you made reference to your Twitter. Your Twitter's really exploded. You're getting a lot of traction on this issue on Twitter, and I really commend you for it. So help our audience to understand what is happening. Let's start with the UK. What is happening in the UK that got your attention? A farmer, a businessman in Scotland who became interested in the World Economic Forum. How did that happen?
I think, over a period of years, I've been aware, I've heard the term World Economic Forum before. I've heard of people meeting in a place called Davos before. I have to say, I didn't pay too much attention to it. I assumed it was sort of another one of the billionaire clubs for the rich and the industrialists, globalists, those in business, banking. And I suppose there are other groups that are very similar that you've heard about, like the Bilderbergers and various others. But I really sat up and paid attention when I saw a video of the German chairman Klaus Schwab bragging, because he was very pleased with himself, and he was actually bragging about how he and his organization had penetrated, those were his own words, penetrated the cabinets of governments around the world. And it was at that point I thought, what is he really going on about? What's this all about? What does he mean when he say he's penetrated them?
It's important to have a Christian worldview. The question becomes, how do we build that? How do we develop that? Oftentimes we have Bible teachers who are very faithful in teaching Scripture, but don't ever quite make the connection with the outside world. Other times we have Bible teachers who don't really want to touch certain topics because they're just seen to be too toxic. At tomap.com, you are going to find a wide range of issues being addressed to help you build out that Christian worldview. They're on things from suffering, dealing with mental health, to racial reconciliation. These are all issues that you will find at tomap.com, and they'll help you to build out a Christian worldview and to flourish. I hope you learn a lot from the podcast, but you can go beyond the podcast to the courses that we offer at Tome. So I hope you'll take a look at them and sign up. To get access to more than 100 Tome courses, use the code IDEAS. And for $8.25 a month, you can get access to all kinds of courses on a wide variety of subjects. Individuals with expertise, with experience in subjects that will be meaningful to you. So use the code IDEAS, and for $8.25 a month, you can get access to all of them. Go to tomap.com. Back to the podcast.
So I started to investigate, and I have a bit of a fondness for research myself. Not in the same caliber as you, obviously, Larry. I'm in awe of you in terms of your capability and what you've done. And I will pay tribute at this point to a video that you put out, that I put on my channel. And although I was aware of a lot of things of the WEF, it still impacted me very, very deeply. And that's why I reached out to you, and that's how we ended up discussing these things, because it was a very powerful video. And that was to do with what is the World Economic Forum. In fact, I sent that to people, and instantly they were red-pilled. What I mean by that is they woke up to what really is going on there.
You're
so
very
it was
kind,
at that
Jim.
point.
I appreciate that.
No, not at all. My pleasure, Larry. And I think at the end of the day, what's happened is that people are starting to see that there is something a little bit more sinister. So in the UK, for example, we have one of the oldest parliaments, the mother of all parliaments, as it's sometimes known as. Very ancient traditions in Parliament, parties that are very successful. The Conservative Party in the UK is probably one of the most successful parties that has ever existed. They've won more elections. They've been in power longer than anybody else. And I have to say, I am a traditional conservative. So my political leanings are slightly to the right of centre. I believe in traditional family values, strong borders, strong military, peace through strength, supporting our police and law and order, all those types of traditional types.
Isn't that sad that's considered to be right of center?
Well, actually, it's strange. It should be. But what we've seen, we've seen a bit of a takeover within our parliament. And it's not just in one particular party. It's happened between the two main parties. So the official opposition being the Labour Party in the United Kingdom and the Conservative Party. And they've almost become a uniparty where they've almost morphed into the same thing. Now, the founder of the Labour Party was a fellow Scot actually, was a chap called Sir Keir Hardie, who started the movement in Glasgow many years ago. And it was done because he wanted to protect workers' rights, look after people, because at that period of time, they were abused by abusive employers, and health and safety was a big issue. Many people lost their lives working in factories where there was no fire exits. Or if the fire exits were there, they were sometimes chained and padlocked, and people lost their lives. So there was some good reasons why he started what he did. But what's happened, Larry, in the UK is that the Conservative Party, who used to be into these traditional types of values, are no longer interested. Immigration is at an all-time high. We have very woke ideology going on. We see police officers in rainbow uniforms walking around. We see police cars covered in rainbow flags and painted with rainbow colours. It's become almost a complete and utter joke. Crime is at an all-time high. And because of the immigration situation that's out of control that's coming across the English Channel, we have hotels filled with people. We don't know their backgrounds. Many of them are terrorists, as has been confirmed by our security services, known as MI5, who protect our internal security within the country. And when Rishi Sunak came into power. He was installed there after a bit of a coup with the previous Prime Minister, Liz Truss, who was democratically elected by the Conservative members. And she only lasted a matter of weeks. And then Richie Snook came out from nowhere and the members didn't get to vote. And of course, he's a WEF, a World Economic Forum member, as is the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, as is Penny Mordaunt, one of his closest confidants and in his cabinet. And the list goes on and on. So we had an interview with Keir Starmer, or at least somebody, not me personally, but somebody had an interview with him, and they asked him the question, Davos or Westminster? And he instantly chose Davos. And she asked him why. He said, well, because that's where the real power is. That's where I want to be. And it was quite clear that Sir Keir Starmer, who heads up the official opposition, is also a World Economic Forum member. We've seen the introduction of 15-minute cities into the UK, and I know we're not alone there, Larry. It's happening in other parts of the world. These are control mechanisms to stop people from moving out of their districts, and that's actually what they're calling them, districts. And I don't know if you've ever seen a film called The Hunger Games, but that's what they called it, and it's a dystopian type of futuristic nightmare scenario where people have no freedom. And me being Scottish, in particular Scottish Highlander, the term freedom is really quite important, and I know it is to many millions of people around the world. So it's not just happening in the UK. There are things that are happening that are impacting on us. The introduction of central bank digital currencies is another mechanism. And in London, we've had what's called the ULEZ, or that's ULEZ, which is a way to tax people. As soon as their car comes out of their driveway, there's special cameras that watch, and they start getting charged a lot of money for using their vehicles until they drive back into their driveway again. So there's this dystopian type control that's coming in, and it's going back to the World Economic Forum. And you're quite correct. They have no legislative power whatsoever. They're not elected. And German Klaus Schwab is the only chairman of the organization, which he founded, I think, back in the early 70s, 71, something along those lines. But what they do have is people in very senior positions of power, not just in the United Kingdom, but Joe Biden is linked into it. John Kerry, who is the special envoy for climate change, is linked into it. Justin Trudeau in Canada is a WEF member, as is his deputy, Chrystia Freeland. And she's actually a board member of the World Economic Forum, which means that she's got significant influence and is very close to her German chairman, Klaus Schwab, as well. And then she's also in charge of a lot of the finance. And I've been speaking to a number of people in Canada very recently, and there's a lot of question marks about where the money's getting spent in Canada. And unfortunately, they've not been getting too many answers about that. Just Emmanuel Macron in France is also a member of the World Economic Forum, as is Mark Rutte, who is
new president of Brazil.
Yes, in Brazil as well, and Mark Rutte in Holland. And of course, that's another big issue for me because of what we've seen with the Dutch farmers there, Larry. And it's very worrying to see that, because there are legislation that's coming out that's affecting nitrogen levels. They are targeting farmers, not just in Holland, but around the world. And I'm going to come on to something shortly that's going to impact into the United States as well, which is deeply concerning. But in Holland, they have expropriated 3,000 farms, which means that they are forcibly buying those farms at a price that they want to pay. So they're seizing people's farms in Holland, 3,000 of them to start with, which is going to impact them in significant ways. Those farmers have farmed on they own the land, they own those farms, they own the livestock, and they've got no choice in this. And in fact, the European Union, in particular the European Commission, which are unelected bureaucrats that run the European Union, have told those farmers that if they resist, they will be banned from farming anywhere else within the European Union member states. So anywhere in Europe at all, France, Belgium, Holland, Norway, Sweden, wherever, although Norway is not technically a member. But these are very worrying times, Larry. and it's going to come to the United States. And I've been fortunate enough to talk to ranchers and farmers over there on a regular basis. I've been speaking to people internationally now in New Zealand, Australia, Canada, the United States, France, parts of Europe, Holland, and of course the United Kingdom. And it's incredible what I've been finding out. But John Kerry has said,
before we get to that, Jim,
yeah,
let me ask a quick question. I want to come to that, but let me back you up just a little bit. Help people understand. I mean, you're a farmer, so you know a little bit about this, more than the average individual who doesn't do any farming. Why are they doing this to these Dutch farmers? Help people to understand what is the motive here in buying up these 3,000 farms and pushing these people out of their homes. What's going on with this?
Well, the reason that they're taking over these farms, and you have to bear in mind that Holland is the second largest producer of food and food products in the whole of Europe. It's a massive industry. It's a tiny little country. They only have a population of 5.8 million people. It's not much bigger than Scotland, to be honest. We've got a population of about 5 million. And Holland is one of these incredibly industrious little countries. They have farming methods that are a shining example to other farmers all around the world. It doesn't get better than the Holland farmers. The Dutch farmers are incredibly good at what they do. And it doesn't make sense that they're being targeted in this way. And I had a very good interview with Anita van der Molen, who works with a lot of farmers, and she's her business deals with cattle and the transportation of cattle. And she was explaining to me that Holland is completely self-sufficient in terms of food provision. In fact, they're providing food for many, many other nations. But the World Economic Forum doesn't want countries to be independent and prosperous, because at the heart of the soul, the dark soul of the World Economic Forum, is a desire for a one world government, a new world order that they control. And what they fear are the masses of people that are around. Because if people wake up to what they're really doing, then they could end up being in a big problem, because there's a lot of us, and there's only a few thousand of them that own all the land and all the wealth and all the money. So one way of ensuring that they have control is to control the food. And they are looking right now at setting up what they're calling food hubs. And these food hubs will be controlled by them. So going back to Holland briefly, they're going to stop them being independent in terms of the production of food and crops and cattle and milk and dairy. And they're going to make them dependent on other nations. And what they're doing is they're launching a media tirade against farmers. They're trying to portray farmers as being a problem for climate change. They're blaming herds of cows for warming up the planet.
Yeah,
through
cattle
methane.
flatulence.
Cattle flatulence, yeah. And it's just not true. It's false science. They're using this climate scam type language to frighten people, gullible people that don't understand that farming is the solution. It's certainly not the problem. And the real reason is control, Larry. They want to control the masses of people. And there's a very dark, agenda. And you've covered this very well in your podcasts. And unfortunately, there's no nice way of saying it, but there is truly a depopulation agenda going on. And we can talk a little bit more about that. I uncovered a doctor in Canada. I just retweeted about it. It's going viral as we speak. I think it's probably close to, if not exceeded the 1 million mark, and it was only posted yesterday afternoon. I've been very fortunate with my followers on my channel, and I've had a number of videos that have gone well into the millions of views, because I'm picking subjects and I'm engaging with people like yourself who stick to the facts. They are not blowing things out of proportion. They're dealing with the truth. And I didn't speak to this doctor, but he's followed me back on Twitter. I think there's probably a very good chance that I'm going to be speaking to him quite soon. And what he's exposed to do with the vaccines is just mind-boggling and very, very concerning. And if you want me to, I can expand on that a bit more. But if you want to
tell me a little bit. Tell me a little bit more now, Jim. Let's go back to where you were just a few minutes ago. Now having a little bit of an understanding of why the World Economic Forum is buying up these farms and dislocating all these farmers. You were starting to tell us about your engagement with farmers in other parts of the world, in South America and the United States and so on. What are you discovering from those conversations?
Well, they're all being targeted. This isn't where, the farmers in Canada, the farmers in Holland, the farmers in the UK are not alone. It's happening slightly at different rates. For example, in Holland, they're really getting it hard at the moment, but it's going to come. And I've been engaging with some ranchers in Nebraska and some farmers over in Texas and various other places, and they're starting to wake up to what's going on. I spent a long time talking to a farmer in Yorkshire last night, yesterday morning, and then again last night in detail about what was coming to the UK, and it's very concerning. So they're what they're looking to do. For example, the Environmental Protection Agency in America are getting massive investments at the moment, huge amounts of money, and they are hiring all these people, these enforcers, on massive salaries. Huge salaries in excess of $200,000 a year. I mean, very well paid jobs. And they're just recruiting an army of people. And what they're going to do in the Environmental Protection Agency, they're going to be going and paying visits to farmers and ranchers and different people, armed with new legislation that's going to be coming in, which will be passed into law by legislators and lawmakers in the Senate and Congress, which of course will be drip fed down from people like John Kerry, who is fully involved with the World Economic Forum. And he has stated, in fact, that the seizing of farms may have to be done in the United States. I think he mentioned a date of 24 or 25. So we're not talking far into the future. This is happening right now, and people need to understand that it's all about control. Control the food and you control the people. But what I've been doing is I've been engaging with people internationally, because I believe there are three strands. I've spent a career working with specialist police units, not as a police officer, but as something else. And I ran a team in Scotland, and I reported to my HQ, which was down in London, and I had a special role down there. And I dealt with all sorts of things that I worked with specialized police officers and doing intelligence and serious organized crime and violent crime and all sorts of things like that, ran campaigns. And what I found working with people like that, and it's very similar in the military, you have what's called the strategic level, the tactical level, and the operational level. And I had an idea, sitting just quietly one evening a few months ago, thinking about all these things about the World Economic Forum, what was going on. And Larry, I truly perceive them to be a global threat to humanity itself, to all freedom-loving people around the world, people that love their Constitution, their Bill of Rights in America, people that just want to be lives. These people are a very real threat. And so I thought we maybe need to counter this global threat with a global response, because any individual country is not going to be able to stand against them alone. These people are incredibly well-financed. They've got people like Bill Gates, George Soros, Alex Soros, George's son, of course, has now taken over the reins there, and there are many others. And I think what we need to do is to try and create a greater awareness just with ordinary people around the world so that they understand what's happening. And hopefully there will be some good guys out there, because not every billionaire is evil or wants to take over the world. There will be good people out there. And in a strange way, I would pay tribute to the likes of Elon Musk, who's probably the wealthiest billionaire of them all. And if it wasn't for him, I can tell you now, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now on Twitter, talking to you or talking to any other people. I know that I'm going to be on your YouTube channel, but most of my work is done on Twitter. If it wasn't for Elon Musk buying Twitter and opening it all up to true freedom of speech again, this wouldn't be happening. So not everybody that's wealthy or has been successful in life and business or whatever is bad. And I kind of hope that we might draw people like that into the mix and maybe help to fund the resistance that I believe is needed against these truly wicked and evil people. And you're quite correct. Klaus Schwab is only but one of them. There are probably far, far more senior people to him that are probably far worse. But of course, he's the sort of main figurehead, isn't he? So that's where I'm at on the international circuit at the moment. But we're making huge, huge progress, Larry.
Jim, have you engaged any, they call themselves, if you go to the World Economic Forum, they don't say the World Economic Forum or the WEF, they say WEF. Have you engaged with any WEFers? Have you actually met any of these people?
I've engaged with billionaires and many millionaires, just simply because of the work I've done, and I've had political contact with people, very wealthy people. But whether they were WEFers or not, I wouldn't know, and they certainly back then I didn't ask.
I'm not using it as a test of the the authenticity of your work. As you well know, I'm in agreement with you. I ask because I would encourage you to, because these are, you're talking about how dangerous they are. They are dangerous, and all the more so when you actually engage them in conversation. When I was at Davos, I think you know this, but for the sake of our audience, I'll repeat it. When I was there, kind of as a spy. I mean, as far as they knew, I was just another WEFer. And I went and sat in one of the coffee shops, and during the the breaks between various sessions, there are these plenary sessions and then breakout sessions that are all going on, and in between, just as you would at any corporate conference, people pile into restaurants and coffee shops to chat and get a bite to eat, something to drink, before they head back into to the conference itself. And people thinking that I'm just a WEFer, like one of them, they begin to talk to you quite freely. And issues like we're discussing here on this show about, I detected the word, and I was actually going to have a little fun with you. And the bio you sent to me, you used the word sustainable, because in the you know where I'm going with this. I noticed that their word that is freighted with all kinds of evil meaning is the word sustainability or variants of it. And whenever you see the word or hear the word sustainable, you need to brace yourself for what's coming next, because they're hiding in it a lot of sordid stuff. And by way of example, some years ago, I was doing some research on the intellectual origins of the Holocaust. I'd received a fellowship that sent me to Europe, and it was very interesting to discover that the American and British interrogators at Nuremberg of those Nazis who carried out the Holocaust, that in the very early going of those interrogations, they kept encountering the phrase final solution. And we know well enough what that means now, so many decades hence. But at the time, the West was unfamiliar with the term, and you have one of the prosecutors having to say, "Excuse me, what do you mean by final solution?" And they came to realize that the Germans had even hidden from themselves the evil that they were doing by altering language. They didn't use words like genocide. They didn't speak in terms of mass killing. Instead, they cloaked it with phrases like, the Jewish question and the final solution. And I've discovered that this is the case with the World Economic Forum, with terms like for the greater good, and sustainability, and for the good of the planet, this kind of thing. And when you begin to engage them in conversation, this is the kind of language they begin to use. And if you're not sort of acclimated to it, it might escape you what it is that they're actually talking about. And then when you realize that they say something like population sustainability, what they're actually talking about is, as you well know, they're talking about depopulation. They're talking about reducing the global population. As I pointed out in more than one of my podcasts, Dr. Dennis Meadows, MIT PhD, World Economic Forum agenda contributor. That's his title. World
Mm-hmm.
Economic Forum agenda contributor. So this is a guy who contributes to the agenda, the evil agenda of the World Economic Forum. And you have him in interviews saying, yeah, gosh, it's, it's unfortunate that we have, almost 8 billion people on the planet. And, we got to find a way to get that back down under 2 billion. The Earth can sustain, 1 billion, maybe 2 billion. We got to find a way to get back down there. And then he says, we need dictatorship. And he says, and I hope we can get there. That is to less than 2 billion people peacefully. Yeah. It's astonishing the way these people talk. In fact, maybe when this call is done, we need to strategize that the two of us should go to the World Economic Forum in January of 2024. We can go there as as Sherlock Holmes and Watson. I'll play Watson to your Sherlock Holmes, but go there and see if we can't get in a little trouble. But honestly, just sitting in conversation with them is enough, because I keep referring to this quotation by C.S. Lewis just simply because it's so good. But C.S. Lewis said, the very worst kind of tyranny is that tyranny which is exercised for your own good. And it is because the tyrant does what he does. He tyrannizes you with a clear conscience. He is sure that what he is doing is actually good. And, as I reflect on history, there are those figures in history who are evil and they know it. I have to believe Genghis Khan was fully aware that he was a rather wicked individual. Ivan the Terrible, Stalin, figures of this type. But there are those individuals who really believed that what they did was for the greater good. Hitler believed it. He was such a figure. And these are those kinds of individuals, because they are sure that ushering in these policies that are anti-human, and I've made the argument that this is just a logical outworking of an utterly godless worldview. When you take atheism to its logical conclusions, and I've had people say in YouTube and Twitter in the comments, Larry, I'm an atheist. I don't believe any of this stuff. Not my point to condemn all atheists. Not my point at all. What I'm saying is, when you take that worldview to its logical conclusion that there is no God to judge you in the next life for your actions in this one, that human life has no more value, no intrinsic value whatsoever, and no more value than any other animal on the face of the earth, then you are likely to conclude that might makes right, and that selfishness actually is a logical thing to do. And this is where these people are. It's a post-God world that has arrived at a place that says human beings matter less than policy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And these people have no conscience because of that, because they don't believe they're going to answer to any higher power. But I mentioned a doctor in Canada, and I think I should just maybe touch on this, because I believe it is connected to what the World Economic Forum have done with the depopulation agenda. Dr. Shoemaker, he's in Toronto, in Canada, and he put out a video, and essentially what he is saying is that normally there is only one person in a million that gets myocarditis. Myocarditis is basically, and I'm not a doctor, but it's basically inflammation of the heart. It damages the heart. And he said that he's done studies with the cardiograms and all sorts of different ways of telling that out of the people who have been vaccinated, instead of it being 1 in a million, it's 200,000 in a million who are now coming down with myocarditis. And it gets worse, because he said that there is a 20%, and he's once again, he's basing this on data, scientific data, medical data. 20% of people are getting this. So that equates to 20 in 100, 2,000 in 100,000, and 200,000 in a million. And what he's then saying is that 50% of the people affected, so if it's 200,000, you're talking about 100,000 people will die within 5 years. And he said that's a medical fact.
It's absolutely astonishing. I will reveal something of my own view, which maybe will feel to you like no view at all. I'm yet undecided as to what I think about the conversations on the vaccines, and it's simply because I confess I haven't really done a deep dive on this. I have friends who are very conservative individuals and who are highly suspicious of the World Economic Forum, who sit on both sides of this, individuals whom I respect. But I will say this, what I find is highly suspicious is that how is it that the vaccine is being pushed, and it was pushed hugely by Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, by Bill Gates, and these are individuals who are depopulation people. Yeah. I mean, they are all about depopulation. It feels to me, and they're the pro-lockdown and so on, doesn't it seem just a little bit odd that the people that we were told to trust concerning the vaccines are the very people who are the most anti-human?
Yes, absolutely. And the shocking thing is,
if you believe nothing else, that at least should raise some alarm bells.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And I actually did some research into how many people got vaccinated in the UK. And it was in the 90s for one, it was slightly less for two, and for three, it was 70.2% of the population that were over 12 and up to the age range that I documented. And I worked out, according...
So 10% of the vaccinated population, according to Dr. Shoemaker, is that what you said?
So what he is basically, he's saying that for every million people, 200,000 will
get myocarditis.
And 100,000, so 50% of them, will die within 5 years. And in the UK, we have a population of 67 million. And I worked it out according to the 70.2 data percentage. You're talking 24 million people. But it's not starting from this point, Larry. The vaccination started 3 years ago. And it takes 5 years, according to Dr. Shoemaker, for people to die. So within the next 2 years, we might see 24 million people in the United Kingdom die.
Yeah, this is astonishing stuff. And I want to be clear as to what we're saying on this podcast. Neither Jim nor I are making this prediction. We are saying that this is what someone else says, their own research and data says. Neither of us, claim to be scientists or are knowledgeable on this, just simply that there are those who do believe that this is the case. Thinking about the World Economic Forum, what is happening in the UK and what is happening in continental Europe, and then certainly what's happening globally, what are you personally doing? There are a lot of people who are going to be listening to us, Jim, and go, this is all very interesting and alarming. It's disturbing, but what can I do? And yet here you are, a businessman in Scotland, and you've become quite engaged on this issue. So tell us a little of your own personal story to how you decided you were going to do something about this and begin pushing back on it.
Yeah, it's one of those strange ones, Larry. I didn't, just to put it into context, when I stopped or finished the campaign with the Brexit Party back in 2019, I had fought an incredibly hard campaign. I had been recruited deeply within the Brexit Party. I wasn't just a parliamentary candidate. I became a recruiter within the party. I spent a long time in London recruiting other parliamentary candidates, vetting them, interviewing them, using my skills that I'd done over the period of time, many years before that, to good effect. So when I came out, I was quite happy just to, take a break, get stuck into doing some farming work and just chilling. And about sort of 7 or 8 months ago, I was walking across a field, and I was on my own, and I just thought I really need to get back onto Twitter. It was just one of these strange things that just popped into my mind. And I did, and I started to talk about vaccine harms and vaccine injuries. And all of a sudden, my followers started to go shooting up. I mean, I only had about 1,500 or 2,000. I'd never used Twitter before. May 2019 was when I first started doing it because I was campaigning. I was told, you want to use social media, Jim. If you want to do it, get going with it. So I did. I was never really that bothered about it before. And I also was aware that people were getting nuked on Twitter by people before Elon Musk took it over, if you had to watch what you said. So I thought, well, Elon Musk is now taking it over. He says it's a free platform. Let's try it. And it was. And all of a sudden, my membership started to grow. And it's strange. I never really set out to do anything. I just felt compelled to do it. And I ended up having conversations with people, looking at it. And a bit like Christine Anderson, who is a member of the European Parliament with the German AfD party. She's a great lady. And she got interviewed recently. Why did you go into politics? And she said, because I was afraid. I was afraid of what the World Economic Forum were doing. I'm afraid of what the globalists are doing. I needed to do something. And I'm looking around and I'm seeing the devastation caused by the lockdowns, the forced mandated vaccinations, appalling treatment of people in Canada, being beaten by mounted police officers and trampled by horses. Same thing in Australia. I just felt I had to do something. And I'm on a journey. And I'm on a journey now with tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands of people, reaching tens and tens and tens of millions of people. Do you know, I've just been followed by General Flynn, who's the right-hand man of President Trump, Kim.com. Who else is it? There's so many people with massive accounts that are paying attention to what I'm saying. And I'm only really a very ordinary person with a fairly small channel. But yesterday I found out that somebody on Twitter called, and I apologize for the name, but he calls himself Cat Turd. And he's quite well known. He's got 1.8 million, almost 2 million followers followed me. He retweeted something that I put out that went viral again. I think I've had something like 10 or 12 posts that have all gone viral within the last few weeks. It's just unbelievable. And it's not that I'm anything special, but I'll tell you what is special is the people that are following my channel. And Cat Turd went and retweeted something I put out about Ghislaine Maxwell and the Epsteins. And of course, you know, when you've got big channels like that, I mean, I was very deeply honored that General Flynn spoke the way he did about me. He actually said, you're a stand-up guy, you're taking on the World Economic Forum. And I can't remember exactly what he said, but he put it out in a tweet. Amazing that people like that would be noticing what I'm doing. But it's because of the followers that I have on my channel, but not just them, the people that are watching it. They're sharing the content, they're getting the message out in significant ways. So it's them that are making it possible for me to reach a global international audience. It's not that there's anything particularly special about me. And yes, I'm a businessman, but I'm not doing it for business reasons. I'm doing it because I care.
Jim, we've not met personally, but by any chance, are you, about 6'7" with long auburn hair, maybe from the Scottish Highlands? Do you know who I'm describing? Do you know who I'm describing?
Well, you're talking about William Wallace, by any chance?
Yes, I am talking about William Wallace. I am talking about William Wallace. He was not the size of Mel Gibson. He was 6'7".
Yeah, he's
6'7". I have looked at that Claymore broadsword of his. Which you're not carrying that thing around on your back, are you, Jim?
No, I'm not. I'm 6'1". I'm 6'1". I'm pushing 6'2" when I've got my cowboy boots on.
Well, what I don't want to see, Jim, is you strapped on a table, shouting "freedom," as they remove your entrails.
I'd rather not. No.
Yeah, so let's hope it doesn't end that way. But no, honestly, Jim, this is I somewhat jokingly make reference to William Wallace, but not wholly, because that was a populist movement. Mm-hmm. That was an early populist effort to push back at elitists and to say, no, we won't be pushed around, and we demand to be left alone. We demand our freedoms. And the point is, this is an ancient battle. This is an ancient battle between the elitists, and I don't want to call them elites. That's a compliment to them. They are the elitists. They think they are better than you. Yeah. And, and populists, grassroots, ordinary people. And that battle continues on to our own day, though the manner in which the battle is being fought is somewhat different. If those took place at Falkirk and Sterling Bridge, today it's being fought on Twitter. It's being fought on Instagram. Yes. It's being fought on the battlefield of ideas, and we have to engage in that realm. And I got to tell you, Jim, just at a personal level, It's been encouragement to me that you reach out to me. It's an encouragement to me to know that, they're each additional anti-Weffer, anti-globalist, every thoughtful populist, that I meet, that's another brother in arms that is an encouragement to me. And meeting them around the world, guys like you, it's an encouragement to me to know the guys like you are out there.
Well, I mean, one thing I would say, it's funny you mentioned William Wallace, and I don't see myself as anything like that. But I'll tell you this, I'm a Scottish Highlander, and my family go back many, 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 many generations, and we were very warlike. When we weren't fighting the English, we were fighting each other. That the Scots are renowned for it. But I'm also part Viking on my mother's side, so it gets even worse. I'm part Viking from the Norwegian Vikings that came in and settled up in Shetland and Stornoway and worked their way around the west coast of Scotland, not far from where Donald Trump's mother was born, actually. So, I just think that collectively, when people wake up to the power that's in them, that lies within them, that's when you're going to see an unstoppable movement take place. People are afraid. They think the governments have all this total control. And what they fear the most, Barry, is the people waking up to the real truth of what their real destiny is and their real purpose and the power that lies within them. Because once that happens, nothing will stop what's coming.
Thinking about we've got about 10 minutes left or so, but I think Americans would be very interested to know what the opinions are of what's going on in the United States. Well, how are people in the UK reacting to the events that sort of seems like the constant flow of negativity, the things that are happening in our streets, that are happening in our government? Are people in the UK looking at that and going, oh, well, it's really, really wonderful that we have a guy of such character like Joe Biden who is putting down these insurrectionists? Or do they see and sense that something sinister is happening in this country?
Yeah, they definitely do. I love America. I love Americans. I have a big interest in America. I love the sort of the early rock culture back in the 50s and the 60s. Loved all of that. And have a deep respect for the flag of America. It's not my flag. I'm a Brit. I'm proud of my own flag, and I'm proud of the St. Andrew's Cross, my Scottish flag. But yeah, we see the fentanyl abuse. We see what's going on in the southern border of the United States. We see the mass and controlled immigration, which is a tool of the globalists to bring down nation states and weaken them from within. Joe Biden is sold into that. He's sold America out. He's despised in this country. I'll tell you that right now. And Donald Trump is seen as the true person who could get things back going again. There's many of us that believe that something pretty nefarious went on there at the last election. And it's a sad situation when you see people in streets that are mainly Democrat run cities in stupor. They're drugged out. They don't even know where they are. It's a tragedy, an absolute tragedy what's going on. And yet they are pumping billions more dollars of taxpayers' money into this ridiculous war in Ukraine, which I think is just scandalous. As General Flynn said just quite recently, that child sex trafficking, narcotics trafficking, weapons trafficking, it's all going on in Ukraine. The money laundering that's taking place there is off the charts. And everybody knows that Joe Biden and his son Hunter are little more than criminals. They are fakes and they're frauds. And of course, the vaccine injuries potentially that Dr. Shoemaker in Canada was talking about is now affecting those military personnel in America and also in Canada, as I reported today. They've got a commander-in-chief that's not loyal to the military there. And many of them are turning their back on him.
Absolutely. And I have a bit of a theory, and I offer no evidence for this, so I want to be upfront in saying this. We need an intrepid journalist who will track this down. But I am confident that if you could follow the money from the United States, the billions that are being sent there, it's not only going to nefarious criminal causes and into into Swiss bank accounts of somewhere in the Cayman Islands for the Bidens and for the Clintons and the Obamas and various others. But I'm convinced it's being used to fund various World Economic Forum causes.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I think it's coming out, and I think there is more and more and more information. And stay in power in America is anyone's guess, but the deep state are protecting him. The mainstream media are obviously protecting him and have been since he even before he got in. The whole Hunter laptop thing, that the Director Wray and the FBI, the whole thing is corrupt. And there's an old saying, and Larry, you'll know where this comes from, that and I'm paraphrasing slightly here, so apologies if I don't quote it exactly the way it should be, but there's a saying that goes, a house divided against itself shall not stand. And it's a biblical saying, it's a very true saying. And unfortunately, America is very polarized for all sorts of different reasons. And that worries me, because where sometimes America gets criticized, and sometimes that criticism is warranted, but they've also done a lot of good in the world. Incredibly generous people in America. They have supported charities and good causes all around the world. And if America ever falls, Britain and Israel and Canada and Australia and New Zealand won't be far behind. And that's the sad reality.
If the American ship sinks, the undertow will be such to pull down many smaller boats with it. There's no question about that. And I say in my book, Around the World in More Than 80 Days, that America's influence, depending on who is in office in the last 40 years, is very Jekyll and Hyde. You have such wonderful policies as the Marshall Plan, the rebuilding of post-war Europe, which is an astonishing post-war a recovery effort that is unparalleled in history. But you also see under the Clintons, under the Obamas, under Obama and under Biden, the policies in Africa and in South America pushing homosexuality, pushing the LGBTQ, agenda, and the pushing of abortion in those countries under the guise of women's rights, human rights, things of that nature. I think some people here would be a little bit surprised to learn that the kind of things that we're seeing taking place here with what I call the alphabet mafia, you're seeing it in the UK too, aren't you?
No, absolutely, Larry. I mean, it's happening. It's like we're being run by a criminal syndicate. Just I know that we're approaching the end of the podcast, but I must tell you this. I mean, Richie Sunak emerged. He when he was talking about the safe and effective vaccines, it turned out that he had actually invested $500 million. He's a very wealthy guy. $500 million in an offshore account through a company called Thelema Partners in a notorious tax haven called the Cayman Islands, into a company called Moderna, which is one of the big pharma companies that produced the vaccine. And, why would you do that? If you've got nothing to hide, why would you put that into an offshore account in a notorious tax haven? I'm not saying he is doing anything wrong, because I don't know, but it's a bit interesting, isn't it? I sometimes wonder if we're really truly being run by anybody that's honest in politics anymore. I think you've got some decent congressmen and women and some senators over in America, but there's very few members of parliament that I have any respect for. And, I think there are good people in this country that would make excellent members of parliament. They're honest, they're decent people. But when you're up against the World Economic Forum and their massive control mechanisms, you wonder what it's going to take to break through there. But I believe that the people will, when they wake up and they realize the power that's within them, they can effect decent change. And I think, when all is said and done, we are winning the narrative war. You're quite correct to say it's no longer on the battlefield as it used to be in the days of William Wallace. But we are fighting a war that's every bit as intense in so many ways. But I think we're winning with people like yourself, my channel, and others. Collectively, we are making an impact. And I think waking people up is the key to the future and the prosperity and the peace that will come when these people are sidelined again and put back down to where they need to go. Because we don't and can't live in a world where there are evil, wicked people like that in charge. Because humanity itself is at stake here, I believe.
Yeah, I was going to say the stakes are much, much higher now than they were in the Scottish rebellions. We're now in a global battle. And I will say this, to your point about people waking up. I have done an awful lot of travel over the course of my career, but particularly just since the pandemic began. I've probably been in, I don't know, maybe 15 or more countries just in the last few years. And one of the things that I was noticing is this kind of populist uprising that is happening all over the world. And it is happening in South America, like countries like, say, Colombia and Brazil. It's happening in Germany with the anti-vaxxers, there, the whole Nuremberg movement there. It's happening in France. It is happening in the Netherlands. Less so, it seems to me, in the UK, though you can correct me if I'm wrong. Certainly in the United States, the Freedom Convoy in Canada. The point being, I think that people around the world are sensing that something very sinister is happening around the world, and that it is all being orchestrated by a central body, being like the World Economic Forum, which is, again, to use my Bond villain analogy, it's like a specter, sort of organization, and they are trying to resist. But they need direction. They need clarity of purpose. Right now, they don't have it. And the globalists are extremely well organized, and they're extremely well funded. But I, like you, believe that if we can mobilize, we can inform, if we can equip, if we can encourage our side, we can mobilize them. And I think that will make a huge, huge difference for freedom, not just in my country or yours, but around the world.
Yeah, definitely. And I would agree with that. I think in the UK, we're a little bit more laid back. We're a little bit more sort of standoffish, I guess is a way to describe it. But when the Brits get going, my goodness, watch out. That British bulldog spirit is alive and well. And you remember that the UK is made up of different nations. We've got the Scots, we've got the Welsh, we've got the Northern Irish, and we've got the English. And when all is said and done, we came together to defeat a very wicked and evil power under Adolf Hitler and the Nazis. And it was difficult, but we came together and we did it back then. And I see what's rising now as something very similar to it, except that it's no longer confined to a particular country, being Germany. This is now truly global. And that's why I maintain that we need a global effort to defeat it this time round. But thanks to people like you, and thanks to people like the followers that we respectively have on our channels, we're getting the word out, waking people up. And then, it's, as you say, it's about mobilizing and getting people together. When they realize they've got the power, that's when things really start to happen in a positive way, in a good way.
Well, Jim, it's been a pleasure to have you on the Ideas Have Consequences podcast. What I want you to do is I want you to go to Sterling, a place where you've been to before, and I want you to go up on Abbey Craig. You know where I'm talking about, right? To the Wallace Memorial, the Wallace Monument. And I want you to get a picture of yourself standing there holding the William Wallace Claymore. And we need to put that on the anti-WEF flag. That is what we need. We need that good photo. I want to see that on your Twitter feed.
Larry, I will do that for you. I'm planning to go down. I will. I'm planning to do that. I'm going down to have a meeting with some people down there in that neck of the woods. And the only thing I might have difficulty carrying a 6-foot Claymore sword around. If the police officers see me, that might be a problem. But I promise you, I'll get a photograph down at the Wallace Monument. At least I'll do that. I can't
wait to see it. I'm gonna hold you to that now. I'm gonna be looking for it. And I look forward to posting it and reposting it again and again. In the meantime, Jim, stay calm and carry on.
Thank you, Larry. It's been an absolute pleasure. To you and to your audience, it's always good to talk to you.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Hey, so we're back. Thank you for watching. For those who stayed with us, thank you. And those who were reading what I was typing, sorry for the typos there, but hey, I've got things in front of the where I type, so I can't see if I've got an extra letter there or not, or where I finished off. So, anyways, hopefully you'll have patience and get my drift when I type something that's a little bit illegible. But anyways, again, it's really important to know who's who and who's coming up in politics. Are they really going to be helping us out? Who are they supporting? What are you not seeing? What are they hiding? So we have nobody in parliament right now that will help us. It'll be just more of the same. Okay. And because they're on the same agenda. So, we can speculate all we want, but there's only one sure thing, and that's the power of the people. And until the people are in power, we will never be free. You want to be free? You want true freedom? Become a collective shareholder with all Canadians. And because of that, we need everybody to participate. We will not be able to make it happen unless yeah, Cheryl, I'm going to write down their last names and where you can connect to them after on the post. Okay, you'll be able to see exactly where it is and click some links. So after you'll be able to see more of their stuff. So anyways, we have to look at what's happening worldwide, and only then will we know. If we would have known before the convoy, what that there was a big chance of people's bank accounts being frozen. Well, it happened 3 years before in Argentina. Okay, so because people don't look anywhere else, you have to look outside of Canada. And those who are buried into Canada, just going inside of Canada, you will never know the truth, because that's where the lies begin. So now I've got a phone call, and hopefully it'll stop. Just one sec. I'm just going to grab my phone here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so anyway, long story short, I have to get going because I have a French meeting shortly with our members. But the best thing to think about is you need, if you want to learn about groups, you need to be with a group that has solutions, groups that will be able to, protect the people. And it's, you can go to thepowershift.ca. You can join the CPU there on where it says how you can help. Okay. So if you click on how you can help, that there's more ways that you can help. And that's by joining the CPU. We need everybody. I had somebody who, was mentioning sending a donation, but, the donations, when you give donations to the CPU, they're protected because it comes directly to us. So we don't use a middleman like GoFundMe or whatever. Okay. So, your name, your information is protected, so you don't have to worry about donations and using your information. So anyways, if you're looking to, like I said, to do anything, a donation, whatever, we much more rather have the members, because then that makes a huge impact for the government, because the more members we have, the more impact we make, because as long as we stay on the bottom level, the government is not going to be afraid of us. We need to put the government where they're going to be afraid, because the people will know their rights, and that's your civil and your international political and civil rights. And within that comes the Bill of Rights, which is actually, our people's constitution, because the Canadian Constitution does not belong to Canadians. And the Constitution itself, because of the failed attempt of 1982 and the lies that the government perpetrated, was that there was no voice of the people. So our BNA Act is very much alive and well. And it was also upgraded in 2003 by the UK. So I have a whole presentation on that, that you'll be able to get your hands on, and you need to see it to believe it. But if you don't know about it, you'll never know. So, anybody that trashes us, before you trash us, please keep an open mind and start reading our information. Start seeing, start listening. Because what you're doing is you're making Canadians lose this country, and you're hurting yourself and your families. And that's not what we're about. We're about making sure that your families and yourself and everybody thrives in Canada. because as long as we can, if we can make this happen, we can turn taxation into dividends if we're smart enough. And I think Canadians are smart enough. Just right now, they're kind of missing in action. Okay, so please go to the the Powershift, the cpu.ca, join and become a member, or you can go to, and then what we'd like to do is when you go to the cpu.ca, as soon as you come in the main page, there's a link at the top to go to canadianreferendum.ca, sign your referendum, even if you've signed your convention of consent, because the referendum is more explicit and it protects us now. Okay, as opposed to the convention of consent, just saying that you want to exercise your power. Well, the convention of consent, all those signatures will be added on to the signatures that we have for the referendum. So we need a huge amount of signatures. And because of interference by others, we're not even close to anything. So we need to really push hard if you believe in your freedom. And if you believe in your freedom, we need to remove Charles as the head of state and the governor general and take our rightful places. And that can all be done legally without interference from the government. So again, when I mentioned that we went ahead and took a huge loan, why were we not afraid? Is because the government is supposed to help us by law, by international law, to get this done. Okay, now we need to get it out there, but we can't start it, and we can't go after them until we have the support of the people. We can't put the cart before the horse. Okay, so everything's in your hands, people. You need to go and get signatures. You need to go get others. You need to spread the word, and hey, start learning, because we can have a very bright future. And even if we're talking about the planet flipping, we don't know when that is, because maybe somebody's trying to scare us into believing it's happening soon. Okay, so once we have our government in our hands and our governance in our hands, and we can see exactly what's being done with weather modification, cloud seeding, and cloud dimming, sun dimming, and all of these things that we're breathing in, maybe everybody's going to get a lot better. And then we won't have to be afraid of man-made viruses by our own governments. So our government is not, if you say, if you use the word, please remember this, if you use the word gain of function, you're going to be laughed at. The word that they now use is dual function. Okay, viruses of dual function, then you're right. But if you say gain of function, oh no, we're not dealing in gain of function at all, and they can deny it. Mind you, it means the same thing. But these mental people, they are the best at lying. They are the best at everything. So let's be smarter. Let's take back our governance. We were supposed to. 1982 was our official decolonization, so we already are in one sense. So let's finish this, people. So and no, you don't have to be a member. Somebody's asking, do you have to be a member to sign? It's not a petition. It's a legally binding contract between the citizens as a referendum. Okay, and when you sign that, you agree to all of these things that the government has to do and that you are willing to back up. Okay, so the minute you sign, it is a legal living document. Okay, and it could last as long as we need. So if you've already signed the convention of consent, sign that one too. They're going to be put together anyways. But at least you're covering all of your bases. And when you become a member, or even that, you're exercising your rights, your international law rights to civil and political rights, okay, with all other Canadians. So you have that protection under personal rights and under collective rights. So it's time we activate this. Canada and the UK and all the others have ignored collective rights, but they are very much our rights that they can no longer ignore if the people rise, and if we all march down to that parliament and tell the governor general, you need to act, and you need to act now. Otherwise, you are complicit in criminality. And then you're placing the crown, the dignity of the crown, in jeopardy. So who's going to be responsible for all of this stuff when everything is exposed. So the Governor General has to think long and hard about this if she doesn't want to be in bed with Justin Trudeau sharing a bunk in jail. Okay. So thank you very much. Have a great evening. I hope to see you in the CPU and be part of our CPU community. And with the Canadian referendum.ca, there you can also join the referendum community where you can at least stay. That's $25 a year. The CPU is $10 a month, which actually is $120 a year. But that's where the magic happens, and that's where the teaching happens. So, and that's where I meet personally with our members. Okay. So if you want to get into that action, it's time that we get to have a good chat, and we'll see you there. So the CPU.ca and Canadian referendum.ca, and I'll leave you with a little video again that I posted at the beginning, just so that you can understand why we're doing all this.
Attention, Attention, Canadians.
Whoops.
Do you feel disconnected from our current political system? This could be our last chance to take a real legal stand for our rights. It's time to shift the political power to its rightful owners, the Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples of Canada. Dive into our history, understand the need for change, and embark on the quest for true democracy. Are you concerned about our nation's commitment to human rights and self-governance? The Powershift to freedom aligns with vital treaties and international laws enabling us to claim our rightful place as collective head of state. We advocate legally replacing the crown, King Charles III, and our partocracy system with a true democracy, the peoples as the true collective head of state with veto power over our governance, to ensure your voice counts more than party interests. When our national collective civil and political rights are respected, your influence on policies will be direct and impactful. Join us on this noble struggle to make every Canadian and Indigenous peoples a meaningful participant in our future as collective head of state, which was legally owed and kept from us since the patriation of our Constitution, an official decolonization from the United Kingdom of 1982. It's time to correct the past of our government's lies and omissions to the people of our great country before it is too late. People 15 years old and over can sign our Canadian People's Referendum at canadianreferendum.ca and unite for our rights as the collective head of state in our Constitution. Together, we can be the example in reshaping Canada's future, not just for us, but for all peoples worldwide, once and for all. Are you ready to be part of this transformative movement? Join the Powershift to Freedom movement by the Canadian People's Union and be part of a bold vision for Canada's future. Visit thecpu.ca for more details. Embrace and face the change required on your part to shape our future.